They called me Robert's wife for 15 years. Never by my name. Never acknowledging that I built half of everything they celebrated. I'm Elena, and I'm 42 years old. Until 3 weeks ago, I was the invisible force behind Morrison Associates, the accounting firm that my husband Robert claimed he built from nothing. The truth? I built it with him, one late night and one unpaid hour at a time. I was sorting through client files in our home office when I found the email that changed everything. Robert had left his laptop open, and there it was, a message to his business partner Jake about their upcoming merger with a larger firm. The evaluation came back at $2.3 million, Robert had written. Not bad for a business I started in our garage. Elena helped with some bookkeeping in the early days, but this is really my achievement. Can't wait to finally have the freedom to pursue bigger opportunities. I read it 3 times before the words fully sank in. Some bookkeeping. In the early days. For 15 years, I had worked 60-hour weeks building client relationships, developing the systems that made us profitable, and managing every aspect of operations while Robert networked and took credit. I had sacrificed my own CPA practice to be his unpaid partner, believing we were building something together. And to him, it was just some bookkeeping. I sat in our quiet home office, surrounded by files I had organized, looking at financial systems I had created, and realized that my husband was about to sell our life's work for $2.3 million while erasing me from the story entirely. That's when I decided it was time for Robert to learn exactly what some bookkeeping was worth. If you've ever felt invisible in your own success story, if you know what it's like to be the engine behind someone else's achievements while they take all the credit, then you'll understand why what happened next changed everything. But before I tell you how I turned 15 years of being overlooked into the most expensive business lesson my husband ever received, hit that subscribe button. Because you're going to want to see how a woman who was tired of being erased finally wrote herself back into the story. The next morning, Robert left for his usual golf meeting with potential investors. He kissed my cheek absently and reminded me to handle the Peterson account reconciliation, like he always did, giving me tasks in the business he claimed was entirely his creation. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I began my own due diligence. I had access to everything. Every bank account, every client contract, every piece of financial documentation that proved my integral role in building Morrison Associates. And as a licensed CPA who had been managing our books for 15 years, I knew exactly where to look. What I discovered was even worse than I had imagined. Robert hadn't just been minimizing my contributions to potential buyers. He had been systematically removing my name from client contracts, redirecting correspondence to his email only, and restructuring our business documentation to eliminate any paper trail of my involvement. He wasn't just planning to erase me from the sale. He had been erasing me from our business for months, preparing to cut me out entirely. But Robert had made one crucial mistake. In his eagerness to claim sole ownership, he had overlooked one vital detail. I wasn't just his wife who helped with bookkeeping. I was a licensed CPA with a 25% ownership stake in the company that I had never legally transferred to him. That afternoon, I called my old law school roommate Michelle, who now ran a boutique business law practice. "Elena," she said after I explained the situation, "do you still have the original partnership documents?" "Every single one. Plus 15 years of documentation proving my ongoing contributions to operations, client development, and business growth." "And he's trying to sell without your consent?" "He doesn't think he needs it. He thinks I'm just the wife who answered phones occasionally." Michelle's laugh was sharp. "Oh, honey. He's about to get a very expensive education in business law." That evening, while Robert celebrated his successful day of investor meetings, I quietly assembled the most important presentation of my career. Working late into the night, I created a comprehensive business analysis that told the real story of Morrison Associates. I documented every client I had personally acquired, every system I had developed, and every innovation I had implemented that contributed to our profitability. The numbers were staggering. Of our $2.3 million valuation, my direct contributions accounted for approximately 60% of the business value. But I wasn't done. I also prepared a detailed financial forensic analysis showing exactly how much my labor had been worth over 15 years. Using industry standard CPA rates and business development fees, my unpaid contributions totaled $847,000. Then I did something that would have made my business school professors proud. I created a competing offer. The next morning, Robert left for what he thought was his final merger meeting. He was planning to sign the deal that afternoon, splitting $2.3 million with his partner Jake while giving me nothing. Instead, he walked into a conference room where I was already seated at the head of the table, with Michelle beside me and a stack of legal documents that would rewrite his entire narrative. Elena. He looked confused. What are you doing here? I'm here for the Morrison Associates merger discussion, I said calmly. As a 25% owner and co-founder, I have some concerns about the proposed sale. The color drained from Robert's face. Co-founder? Elena, you helped with some early bookkeeping, but... Actually, Michelle interrupted, sliding a document across the table. My client is the co-founder, primary operations manager, and holder of a 25% ownership stake that was never legally transferred. She's also the licensed CPA who has been managing all financial operations for 15 years. The potential buyers looked confused. Robert looked panicked. Furthermore, I continued, my voice steady and professional, I'm prepared to make a counteroffer for Mr. Morrison's shares in the company. I slid my own document across the table. I'm offering to buy out Robert's 75% stake for $1.8 million, which represents fair market value for his ownership minus his debt to me for 15 years of unpaid labor. The room fell silent. You can't be serious, Robert whispered. I'm completely serious, I replied. I have 15 years of documentation proving my contributions to this business. I have client testimonials specifically praising my work. I have financial records showing that 60% of our revenue comes from systems and relationships I developed. I opened my laptop and projected a detailed presentation onto the conference room screen. I also have a complete business plan for moving forward, including the client contracts that are specifically tied to my personal relationships and would likely transfer with me in any separation. The potential buyers exchanged glances. The lead investor leaned forward. Ms. Morrison, this is unexpected. We were under the impression that Robert was the sole operator of this business. That was Robert's impression too, I said. But business ownership isn't about impressions. It's about documentation, legal agreements, and actual contributions, all of which support my position as co-founder and primary operations manager. For the next hour, I presented the most thorough business case of my career. I showed exactly how I had built our client base, developed our proprietary systems, and managed every aspect of operations while Robert focused on networking and business development. The potential buyers were impressed. More than impressed, they were intrigued by the idea of working with someone who clearly had operational expertise and a deep understanding of the business fundamentals. But the real shock came when I revealed my final card. I should also mention, I said, that I've received a competing offer from Morrison Associates. They're interested in acquiring my stake in Morrison Associates and hiring me as a senior partner. Their offer values my ownership at $750,000, plus a guaranteed salary and profit-sharing agreement. It wasn't true. Yet. But I had spent the previous evening drafting a proposal to send to our biggest competitor, and I was confident they would be very interested in both acquiring a profitable accounting practice and hiring someone with my track record. Robert's face had gone from pale to gray. Elena, we need to talk about this privately. Actually, I said, I think this is exactly the right forum for this discussion. These gentlemen are considering investing $2.3 million in a business. They deserve to know exactly who they're doing business with. The lead investor nodded slowly. Ms. Morrison, your presentation is very compelling. But this does complicate our evaluation significantly. I understand, I replied. Which is why I'm prepared to make this simple. I'll sell my stake to you for fair market value $575,000, which represents 25% of the current valuation. In return, I'll sign a 5-year consulting agreement to ensure smooth transition of all systems and client relationships I've developed. Or, I continued, looking directly at Robert, Robert can accept my offer to buy him out, and you can deal directly with me as the primary owner and operator. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, the lead investor spoke. We're going to need some time to reassess this opportunity. This is significantly different from what was presented to us initially. After they left, Robert and I sat alone in the conference room. Elena, he said, his voice broken, I never meant to. You never meant to what? Erase me from 15 years of work? Steal credit for my achievements? Plan to walk away with millions while giving me nothing? I thought you were just helping. I didn't realize you saw it as a real partnership. I looked at the man I had built a business with and realized he truly hadn't seen me at all. Robert, I wasn't just helping. I was working. For 15 years, I worked harder than you did, brought in more clients than you did, and created systems that you relied on every single day. The fact that you couldn't see that says everything about how you view me. 3 weeks later, Robert accepted my buyout offer. $1.8 million for his 75% stake, paid from a business loan secured against my proven track record of operations and client relationships. The potential buyers? They ended up offering me a partnership instead of an acquisition. They had been impressed not just by my business acumen, but by my thorough documentation and professional presentation of complex financial information. 6 months later, Morrison Associates became Morrison Financial Partners, with me as the managing partner and a team of investors who valued operational expertise over networking charm. Robert? He took his buyout money and started a consulting practice. Without the systems I had built, the clients I had developed, and the operational foundation I had provided, his new venture struggled to gain traction. But this story isn't about his failure. It's about my success. Today, Morrison Financial Partners is valued at $3.8 million, nearly double what Robert thought our original business was worth. We've expanded to 3 locations, hired 12 additional staff members, and become the preferred accounting firm for mid-sized businesses in our region. And every single day, when I walk into my office and see my name on the door, not as Robert's wife, but as Elena Morrison, managing partner, I remember the lesson I learned that day in the conference room. Your contributions have value, whether or not anyone else recognizes them. Your work matters, whether or not anyone else appreciates it. And your worth isn't determined by how others see you, it's determined by how clearly you see yourself. The most expensive mistake Robert ever made wasn't underestimating our business. It was underestimating me. But his loss became my gain. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply becoming so successful that the person who overlooked you has to watch you shine from a distance. I still think about that email I found, the one where Robert called my 15 years of partnership some bookkeeping in the early days. These days, when people ask me how I built such a successful practice, I tell them it started with recognizing the value of my own work and refusing to let anyone else write me out of my own success story. Because the truth is, I didn't just help Robert build a business. I built one myself, one late night and one valued contribution at a time. It just took me 15 years to claim credit for my own achievements. What do you think about Elena's business lesson? Have you ever felt invisible in your own success story? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about claiming your worth and building the life you deserve. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply refusing to be erased.